39 female husband, 38 male, fathered a child before we were together, and I just found out 14 years later. After 12 years of marriage and 2 children together, I received a Facebook message yesterday from a woman who told me that she has a 15-year-old daughter that my husband has continually denied since her birth. The child was produced from a one-night stand, and afterwards, my spouse did everything he could to not see his child. The mother eventually had his parental rights terminated, and she moved away for many years. Fast forward to now, my husband has buried this secret as deeply as possible. On the other hand, his daughter is now having some issues, and her mother contacted my mother-in-law in January, imploring him to reach out to his daughter, threatening to tell me if he did not. Apparently they had a 30-minute FaceTime, which he lied about last night until confronted with evidence of her mother provided to me, and then he admitted that it was true, and then he blocked the account so she could not contact him again. Her mother claimed that she sent the message out of love and concern for her daughter, and I understand that she wanted to have a connection with her biological father, but she blew my entire life up in the process. My husband has lied and lied and lied. Even after confronted last night with hard evidence, he eventually admitted to everything, but only when backed into a corner. I asked him to leave the house last night so I could clear my head. But the truth is that I can't even look at him right now. I don't think I've ever felt so dumbfounded, hurt, confused, and betrayed all at the same time. My instinct is to call a lawyer to see where I stand, legally and financially, as I'm not sure I can continue this marriage knowing that I might never feel like I can trust him again. My family thinks that I'm being rash because I'm hurting so much, and this is 12-hour-old information. Also, knowing how he abandoned his first child makes me feel disgusted. Last night he spoke about her as a mistake and a dark secret. He was never going to tell us about her existence because he was embarrassed. Regardless of what happened between he and I, there is a teenager out there who shares 25% of her genetic material with my beautiful children. I don't want that child, who did not ask to be born into such a messy situation, to be separated from her family forever. Even if he does not want to see her, I'd like my kids to eventually know their half-sister because she deserves to be loved and supported, even if her father cannot. So now I'm left with options and questions, and I don't know how to proceed. Do I start the process to end my marriage, or do I try to keep my family together? When do we tell our small children about their half-sister? Anyone who has experienced this, all advice is welcome. And we'll start in the comments with OK Prune, who says, "You're extending so much grace towards that child and I applaud you. Bottom line is you will never trust him again. To keep such a secret for as long as he did is reprehensible." OP responded saying, "We had a great partnership before this. I'm devastated, but I don't want to continue a marriage that was based on lies." He said he was embarrassed since his parental rights had been terminated so many years ago. He felt like she didn't exist. He kept insisting that she was not his child, just a mistake that he made as a dumb kid. There's more background story that will make him look even worse, but it's irrelevant at this point. Just there to further add insult to his character. Lady Shambles says, "I found out my ex had a kid a few years into our relationship, from before we were together, and he had nothing to do with him. I understandably was upset that he hasn't told me, and the implications this could have on our family, inheritance if anything happened to my ex, etc, etc. Years later, in the midst of breaking up, he told me he resented me for reacting how I did, and that he was essentially blameless, and I made him feel bad, and he never truly forgave me. You've got to weigh up if you can move past his lies, and if you can come to terms with this girl likely turning up on your doorstep at 18, wanting to know why he wanted nothing to do with her. If she's part of his life, then she's part of yours." Stizzy off the hizzy says, "I couldn't be with somebody who is capable of such lies and such deceit. And even when confronted with undeniable evidence, still lies and lies until they literally can't anymore. He has no integrity as a human being. I also couldn't be with someone capable of denying an innocent human being's existence that he was just as responsible for creating, as well as gaslighting a single mother. It's gross. What you decide to do is your decision, but I just don't think a marriage with someone like this is salvageable. Because even if he does a 180 and start owning his shit, I'd never be able to shake the feeling that he'd had never owned it if he weren't backed into a corner to do so. He'd have never owned things on his own accord. He had to be bullied into doing what was right. I'd want to be with someone who wouldn't hesitate to right their wrong, and your husband is simply not that. Sorry you are dealing with this. This is probably above our pay grade. In the meantime, get a shark of a lawyer and get your ducks in a row. I'm not saying you have to act immediately, but at least be wise and informed. Yeah, I know myself, I would struggle to move past that for a couple of reasons. Obviously, the lying and keeping this a secret from you all this time. And then, like you say, the way that he's treated his daughter at the same time, talking about her as a mistake and a dark secret. And I think just personally for myself, there's no way I'd be able to move past that. But OP did come back into the post and says, I had a request to post an update, and interestingly enough, I saw a message today that he actually posted in the divorce subreddit after all this happened. He deleted it, and it was full of half-truths. This is what's been going on, and will answer some of your questions. The mother, Carrie, of this child, Danny, has been in contact with us both since this happened. She says that the reason they told me after all these years was because Danny wants to be involved in the lives of her two half-sisters, my bio children. She has not asked for back child support or anything like that. But now that Danny has decided she wants nothing to do with my spouse, and Carrie doesn't seem to be facilitating the relationship with my family the way she originally stated, it seems like something is amiss, but I've been lied to so many times that honestly, I just can't tell anymore. The termination of his parental rights. According to the both of them, she tried to push him into fatherhood. When she finally realized that he had zero interest in being a dad, she had him sign away his rights and then proceeded to disappear until Danny was 8. My spouse never paid child support and was never asked to pay child support. Both of them have told me that. Then Carrie got married and Jeff adopted Danny. I can't see my spouse's original post, but judging by the comments, he made it seem like he signed his rights away so Jeff could adopt her. But that's a lie. Danny was 8 when she was adopted, not an infant. Carrie tried to contact my spouse to sign those adoption papers in 2016, but he blocked her. So she contacted my mother-in-law, who had him sign the papers, and connection ceased again. Then they disappeared again until June of 2020, when Carrie reached out to my mother-in-law because Danny wanted to connect with a paternal biological family. My mother-in-law and sister-in-law proceeded to have a 2.5-year relationship with Danny through phone and video calls, sending presents and money, all the while hiding it from my spouse and lying to Carrie, telling her and Danny that my spouse knew but wanted nothing to do with them. I know this to be true, as I heard my mother-in-law admitted over the phone to my spouse while I was silent on a 3-way call. My spouse had zero idea that anyone had contact with Carrie or Danny until a week after I found out about the situation. In January of 2023, Carrie delivered my in-laws an ultimatum. Either produce Danny's bio dad or they would contact me and let me know what's been happening over the past 15 years. My spouse then agreed to a video call with Danny where he promised that he would tell me and make an effort to make her part of our lives. Within hours, he had Carrie blocked and his mother and sister were so scared of their lie being discovered that they stopped talking to Danny altogether without an explanation. Fast forward to September 2023, my mother-in-law texted Danny to have a good school year, and that was the straw that broke the camel's back. A few weeks later, I received the message that would change our seemingly happy life forever. Presently, he has cut off his family completely. Carrie has also cut off all communication with his mother and sister. They are toxic, and it is the right decision for right now. He comes from a long line of liars, and he is no different. He and I are both in therapy. Marriage counseling starting next week. I'm having good days and bad, as expected. My oldest child will be starting private therapy as well. I haven't told her about Danny, but I don't feel right about keeping the secret, and I know both of my kids have been suffering from the fighting and disruption to their normally quiet lives. I've been trying to put my pieces back together, but I'm still very shattered. I'm journaling out my feelings, but anger is present a lot. I don't know if I can ever trust him again. I don't know if I can ever trust anybody again, but I'm working on it with a lot of help from my parents, friends, and a therapist. How do I build trust again with the father of my children, even if it's just as co-parents? Now, you asked at the very end of this post, how do I build trust again with the father of my children, even if it's just as co-parents? And honestly, I don't know. Maybe that's just a me thing, because I have heard of, and we've read about relationships rebuilding trust back up, etc., but I just don't think I'd be able to do it. And like I said, it's that might be just a me thing. And it sounds like it's only been a month since you found all this out, but it still sounds as chaotic as the first day. You said that he comes from a long line of liars and he is no different. It sounds like you're having good and bad days like you said, but your children are suffering from the disruption to their family as well. And it kind of feels like, and I don't know if this is the right thing to say or what, but it kind of feels like if this was just a co-parenting relationship rather than a marriage, things would be able to navigate much easier. And I think it's fair to say that the majority of the comments on this one were a lot of, divorce, etc., etc. But there was one comment that OP responded to with a bit of a different take. They said, okay, different take than most people's here. But is your husband generally a huge liar? Or is this a particular situation just something he himself can't process emotionally and hence hid, then doubled down and lied to keep in the closet? I asked because I'm adopted. When I first got into contact with my birth mother, there was a whole mess of her having hidden the fact that she had a child she gave up for adoption from both her long-term partner, who is an awesome dude who would not have been anything but supportive and understanding, many of her immediate family members. Same deal there. Then stalled having me meet them while she trickle-truthed them and flat out bullshitted me about some of the events surrounding my conception and subsequent adoption. In the end, I basically told her to tell her family or I would. She told them. I got to meet them and we pieced together the bits she hadn't been straight with any of us about. The thing here is that I've had a good relationship with her for over 15 years now, and she isn't, generally speaking, a liar at all. She had a ton of complicated feelings about my birth and adoption and never really processed them. She wasn't trying to keep the truth from others, she was trying to avoid actually confronting any of it herself. She felt a ton of guilt about not wanting me and giving me up. More guilt for not wanting her parents to adopt me instead of doing a closed adoption. And I think even more guilt about not regretting her decision. This is all super common for birth parents to feel when they give up a child. And it doesn't necessarily translate to them being likely to behave the same way in another scenario. Your husband needs some professional help here, and as massively hurtful as I'm sure this has been, I don't think it automatically means he's in any way a bad person, or overall an untrustworthy one. And I purely read that because OP responds to it, and they said, thank you for sharing this with me. He and I have a good marriage, and he's been a very supportive father and partner. I was completely shocked when I read Carrie's message because I didn't think that he could be capable of this level of deceit. He's not a terrible person, although the situation paints him as a complete monster. He has been in private therapy for a year already and continues to go every week. He has a ton of emotional issues to work through. Your perspective is so important for me to hear right now. I'm glad that you and your bio mum have a good relationship. Thank you again. Now, how would you react if you found yourself in OP's situation? Is it something you'd be able to build that trust back up from? And look, I get it. There's lots of complicated feelings like that comment said here. I'm not going to pretend that everything is easily navigated, especially a situation like this, because it isn't. But for me, when it comes to just purely the facts of being able to trust someone that you're married to, yes, like I said, I know it's incredibly complicated, but for myself, I wouldn't be able to look past that again. And hearing that, like, the family was all in on it, the family knew about this as well, come on now. But now I'm going to turn this one to you guys. What do you guys make of this situation? Let's move on to another story from the named Evan.